Welcome to Natural Habitat Adventures Daily Dose of Nature. Today's presentation, Sleep Where Polar Bears Roam, Inside Our Tundra Lodge Adventures, is brought to you by Expedition Leader Eddy Savage. Eddy studied coastal adventure tourism at North Island College and has led multi-day nature expeditions since 2008 across diverse platforms, from sea kayaks and canoes to expedition ships and sailboats. He's a long-tenured grizzly bear viewing guide in Canada's Great Bear Rainforest and has served as a NatHab expedition leader since 2016, leading photo expeditions to Churchill, Haida Gwaii, Greenland, Iceland, and China. As an accomplished nature photographer and writer, Eddy has published his photography and nature-focused articles in print and online, while specializing in challenging conditions from Arctic tundra to temperate rainforest. Eddy, thanks for being here today. Take it away, sir.
Well, thank you very much, and hello, everybody. It's great to see you, and I'm glad you're tuning in to learn a little bit about our Tundra Lodge adventures. Thanks for the intro. Folks, as an introduction to your trip or to our Tundra Lodge adventures, this trip, or this presentation rather, is basically focusing on 3 trips, and these are the 3 trips that Natural Habitat Adventures runs that spends time on the Tundra Lodge. That would be the Tundra Lodge adventure, which is going to be 6 days in total, with 3 nights on the Tundra Lodge. The Tundra Lodge photo adventure, which is 7 days, 4 nights on the Tundra Lodge, and the Tundra in Town, or Ultimate Churchill Tundra in Town adventure, which is going to be 2 nights on the Tundra Lodge and 2 nights in town, with a total trip length of 7 nights, or 7 days, I believe. We're going to kind of talk through a little bit about getting to Churchill, where it is, all that kind of stuff, and what we're doing, and then we're going to kind of just go through all the details, the finer details of this trip, and some of the things that makes the Tundra Lodge trip so fantastic. So let's get started. So where are we heading? So the bottom yellow arrow that you can see on your screen is where Winnipeg is, and that's where all of these trips begin. We're going to be heading into the capital of Manitoba, Winnipeg, staying at the Fort Garry Hotel. I'll show you some pictures of that. And then after our welcome dinner on day 1, the following morning we transfer via chartered plane to Churchill, Manitoba. So let's have a look at what that, in the flight, 2.5 hours roughly, 2 to 2.5 hours. Let's see where it begins. So if you're arriving from the domestic terminal, so you flew from a Canadian airport into Winnipeg, your arrival might look something like this, and you'll see some stairs that you have to go down towards the baggage. Might look something like that as well. And then internationally, you're also going to be arriving into the baggage carousel zone. Now, the most important thing when you get to the arrivals hall is you are going to want to collect your bags, but you don't have to do that right away. It takes a few minutes for them to hit the carousel, but do have a quick look around and see if you can find some of our fantastic NatHab staff who will be waiting for you. We know you're coming. We've got your information, and we'll have a team there waiting for you. Look for the sign, look for the logos, that kind of thing, and then you'll collect your bags, join up with our crew, and then we'll have a shuttle for you back to the hotel where everything kicks off. If you have any troubles along the way, just make sure to reference either your pre-departure briefing or a printed copy of your itinerary for some numbers to update on your travel plans. But otherwise, we are keeping track of flight delays and stuff like that for the most part. But if something big comes up, please call and give us a heads up about where and when we should expect you. So we're going to transfer from the Winnipeg International Airport to the Fort Garry Hotel. We have an exclusive shuttle with our drivers that takes us there. You may be with a few other travelers who are starting their polar bear adventures as well. And then you'll arrive at the Fort Garry Hotel, get yourselves checked in, and then you'll be given a welcome letter, a greeting from us, kind of with the down to the minute schedule for the next day or so. From there, check in. You're going to then be instructed to find our boots and parkas room, or to get the NatHab gear. So I'm gonna dive in a bit deeper here, because a big question about coming up to Churchill is, well, what temperature should we expect? What kind of clothes do we have to wear? What kind of clothes are you lending us? What's all that going to look like? And so you can see the people in this photo. They're donning our fantastic winter parkas. The great thing about these winter parkas is, well, first off, we lend them to you, and they've got some nice big pockets. They have a nice big hood with it's a faux fur, fake fur ruff, which helps cut down wind. In particular, there's not a lot of trees up in Churchill to block the wind, so it's nice to have that fur ruff to keep that warmth close to your face. Sorry, fake fur ruff. As well, you can see on many of these folks' feet, there's some heavy boots, and so we're also going to give you lend you some heavy boots. And that doesn't only help with keeping your feet warm throughout the day. It also helps. We've got some good traction. So if we come off the plane and the tarmac's slippery, or on the back deck of the Rovers or something like that, it's nice to have a little bit of traction, and those boots do help with that. So we're there to lend you a parka and the boots for the duration of your expedition. You pick those up in Winnipeg, you carry them throughout the trip, wear them throughout the trip, and then we'll have some collections towards the end of the trip to get those back. Now, I'm going to show you here. We're going to talk about layers in a second, but I'll just show you kind of the gray highlighted area there. Those are your typical temperatures, your kind of average lows, your average highs through October and November. Now, what this is not factoring in is wind, and so the wind can make those temperatures plummet even lower. But with that being said, trips, it's impossible to say exactly what temperature we're going to experience. It's just going to be a range. Typically, if you're there in October, it'll be a little bit warmer than it is in November, but it can also just be plain cold if the wind gets howling. So how do I pack? How should you pack? What should we be looking for? Folks, there's a really extensive packing list in your pre-departure briefing that you should receive. You should have received. If you haven't, contact your adventure specialist. But you're going to have a pre-departure briefing with a ton of great information about the gear that you need and why we need it. But what I'll tell you is, in addition to your boots and parkas, early season, you might not necessarily think you need some of this, like in kind of October. You might think you might not need it, but I still recommend bringing it just in case. I will say that a couple of years ago on October 27th, I remember standing outside at the Tundra Lodge. The wind was howling and it was minus 37. Unlikely to happen. That was kind of a one-off, but you never know. And I bet those people who had long johns were pretty happy that day. So the main thing is, outside of the boots and parkas, you want to make sure you've got, comfortable and warm pants and layers. What I usually do is on my base layer, I have like a merino wool base layer. It's a light merino wool base layer. And then I wear a fleece vest, and then I have a down puffy jacket, and then I have my parka on top of that. And that usually does me for the coldest of days. And I have a pair of kind of heavier outdoor pants on my legs. But socks, I'm always bringing, the best way, especially on cold days, to keep your feet warm is to have a thin pair of socks on the right against your feet, and then a thick pair of socks over top of that, and that will help you retain heat in your toes. Additionally, gloves and a warm hat. I can't say enough about having a warm hat. Keep those ears nice and warm. You lose a lot of heat through your head. And then gloves is nice if they're windproof. Not totally necessary, but it sure is nice if you have, maybe a thinner layer of like a glove liner and then a heavier pair of mitts over top of that is great. Otherwise, just kind of a heavier windproof mitt will go a long ways up there in Churchill. So if you get to Winnipeg as well, and you're just like, oh man, this is colder than I expected, just remember that Churchill's going to be much colder, and Winnipeg has lots of stuff available near the hotel. So if you're kind of if you forget something, there's places to get gloves or socks or scarves or warm hats or whatever. But the most important thing that I would say is have layers, follow the pre-departure briefing, follow that packing list, and then when we're talking about not having enough or having too much, I'd rather have a couple layers too many with me than too few. Don't go overboard with that, but just follow that packing list, and know that you can experience quite cold weather in October and November, and have it available just in case. Yeah, and so the packing list, you can also find it here on the website. You just go to our polar bear tours, you go to the Know Before You Go section, and you should be able to find the packing list and some of that weather and climate information on our website, and as well as lots more fantastic information. But yeah, so we're going to go over packing and all that kind of stuff at the welcome dinner in Winnipeg. And then once you've got that all lined up, you've got your gear, you've met your expedition leader in Winnipeg, what do we do next? Well, the next morning we travel to Churchill by that chartered aircraft I mentioned. So here we are. It looks something like this. There will be three, well, I guess if we're a Tundra Lodge group, there'll be a Tundra Lodge group, which is a total of 29 people for a full group, and then likely one other trip that's not going to the Tundra Lodge will join us. So it'll be a relatively full plane. And then if there's extra space, NatHub tries to offer that to local partners or people living in Churchill as well. So anticipate that the plane will be full, and there won't be, you'll be, it will be a full plane. But the way that works for our flight, it's about 2 to 2.5 hours, sometimes 3 if we got a really bad headwind. But it's this lovely twin turboprop. We have a couple of different features here for luggage. But something that you have to keep in mind is this is not your typical, international sized aircraft. It is smaller than it's more of like a domestic or rural flight, rural plane. So it's smaller. The stowage space for bags is smaller. And so in our pre-departure briefing, I'll reference that all the time. You've got some really kind of distinct limits for bag size and all that kind of stuff. And usually what ends up happening, and I'll talk about this a little bit, and your expedition leader is going to go into this a lot as well, is you're allowed to have one item for carry-on with a 20-pound maximum. And that carry-on inside the plane is 10 by 16 by 12 inches. So think kind of like a small to medium-sized backpack is what gets carried on. However, if you have a larger carry-on than that, in particular, if you're taking one of these photo expeditions and maybe you've got a big camera bag like I do, we kind of have the same weight restriction on that. But what ends up happening is we do something called valet, which is similar to like gate check or something like that. But for the valet luggage, if you have a bag that's too big for being stowed in the aircraft, like under the seat in front of you, and we make that decision when we're at the Fort Garry Hotel. We look at everyone's luggage, and the airline can further make more decisions based on that, based on size and weight. But basically, if you have a larger bag like the one on the right you can see here, what we'll do is we'll take that from you in the morning that we're going to the airport. We're going to weigh it. We're going to put a tag on it that says valet, and then the valet luggage gets stored basically in a separate compartment from the main seating area. And the only time that you won't have it with you is basically from the hotel to Churchill. And then as soon as we land on the tarmac, we will have that bag available for you next to the aircraft. So it's kind of it's a great service. I do it every time with my camera bag filled with lenses and cameras and all that kind of stuff, because it's such a convenient thing, and it saves so much space on board the plane and keeps it so that we don't have to worry so much about making sure every bag we bring up to Churchill is tiny. As far as your checked bag, your checked luggage, we are looking at a 50-pound maximum for the weight on that one. And we do suggest that the luggage you bring is soft-sided. In particular, for the Tundra Lodge, it is nice to have a soft-sided bag that's slightly waterproof. There'll be lots of transferring, but you'll see. I'll show you some pictures of the inside of each room, and you'll see what kind of storage space you have. And I find that the hard cases, they've got like that plastic coating on the outside, and they're quite rigid. They aren't as easy to access in the storage that's available for your bag in your room. So that's luggage. Lots of great information in the pre-departure briefing, and then I know our adventure specialists are dialed in on this one. But once you get to Winnipeg as well, if you have any further questions about baggage that haven't been answered already, your expedition leader can give you a hand with that in Winnipeg. So those are our luggage restrictions. Now, when we actually arrive at the aircraft, so the way that it works is in the morning, we'll all meet in the lobby at the Fort Garry Hotel, our departure morning. Expedition leaders and operations, our field operations specialists will come around. We'll collect any valet luggage that needs to go. Your checked bags will have already been picked up, and they're going to be loaded onto the plane before we even get there. There's no security, which is kind of cool. So you can bring that full water bottle if you want. And then we are going to load up onto the plane, we're going to load up onto a bus, drive for about 25 minutes, get to the airport, and then when the airline is ready for us, we'll walk maybe 15 feet across the tarmac to the steps to bring us up into the aircraft. And this airplane, we charter it specifically for these trips. We'll be using the same aircraft all through the season. So you can expect it to look something very similar to this picture, just with different people. Now, you can see the overhead compartment. That will not fit a typical kind of international size carry-on bag. So what we do, because everybody's got parkas, is basically we'll get those parkas into the overhead storage, and then if you have a small bag that you've brought on board, we'll put that under the seat in front of you. There is a bathroom on board, which is nice, but the flight, as I mentioned, it's about 2 to 2.5 hours. And when we arrive in Churchill, so this is where things differ from the other trips. Basically, most of kind of the logistics to get to Churchill are the same as our regular trips, but for the Tundra Lodge trips and the Tundra Lodge photo and the Ultimate Churchill Tundra in Town, we basically arrive at the airport and we take our entire group and we jump onto a bus that looks different than this one. I actually don't have a picture of it, but it's a longer 30-seater bus that will take us directly from the airport out to what's called the Polar Rover launch. So kind of within your first 45 minutes of being in Churchill, we are going to get onto a Polar Rover and transit out to, or basically start our polar bear viewing experience right away, or our polar bear searching experience right away. You will see this name a lot everywhere, Great White Bear Tours. They are our local partners. They are providing the buses that transport us around. They provide the rovers, all that kind of stuff. So you will see that logo all over the place, and they are our fantastic local partners that NatHub has been working with for decades. And so what we're going to do is, like I said, we're going to jump onto that rover. Our first day, it will be all 29 of us on board that one rover, and we're going to head out. We're going to get ourselves some lunch. That we'll have lunch provided on the rover, and we're also going to start looking for wildlife and enjoying the beautiful scenery along the coast of the Hudson Bay and the Churchill Wildlife Management Area right away. So we head on to the tundra, we have some lunch, we look around, maybe we've seen a bear, fantastic. But then around 3:15, we're going to start making our way to the Tundra Lodge and try to arrive there by 4 o'clock or a little bit after. This is where it is. So I love this photo, and I wish there was one from even higher up that I could share with you here. But one of the most spectacular things about the Tundra Lodge to start with is just how remote it is. So we have to drive already, half an hour from the airport to get to the rover launch, and then from the rover we're another hour on the rover to get us to the Tundra Lodge, and we are basically sleeping in polar bear habitat. We are sleeping at the edge of the Hudson Bay. We are sleeping in Arctic fox and red fox habitat, and it is as wild as it gets as far as accommodation for these polar bear trips. And that is what is so, I think, one of the coolest things about this place. So we'll arrive at the Tundra Lodge. We're going to get introduced to the Tundra Lodge team. We'll get checked into our rooms, and I'll show you some pictures of the rooms right away. But here we are. So this is what the Tundra Lodge looks like from the side. Just to start with, we've got our sleeping cars here. So down there, you can kind of see that there's the windows are all staggered. So there's some upper, there's some lower, upper, lower, upper, lower. That's basically where you have your upper bunk and your lower bunk. So the bed is always next to that window, a room with a view. And then we've got the lounge car here. So in the lounge car, there's some nice couches and chairs. We often do presentations in there. There's also a really nice furnace in there, so it's usually quite warm. And then we also, in the evenings, when we're done our day and before dinner, we usually kind of have like happy hour with some hors d'oeuvres and that kind of thing as we settle in for the evening. That's the lounge car. And then for meals, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, we'll be spending time in the dining car. So we have seating for us as well as the commercial kitchen that's there with our crew who will be working on that, preparing us some fantastic meals throughout the trip. And then the back here, this one here with the least windows on it, this is essentially the lodge crew car and storage. So all those delicious meals that we eat and all that kind of stuff. This is where there's kind of the food storage and as well as accommodation for our crew that's working on the lodge. And then this is really important and really a great thing about the Tundra Lodge is you can see in between the cars there's these observation decks. And so we'll talk about Tundra time in just a minute for these Tundra Lodge trips, but part of the day you're often on the lodge, or in the evenings we're on the lodge. And as I mentioned, we're out there in the middle of nowhere, and I'm not going to say it's going to happen every trip, but it does happen that you can see bears quite regularly off of these viewing platforms. Whether they're far away or close, it's totally variable, but it's fantastic to know that, once we're done on the polar rover for the day, we come in here and we're enjoying our hors d'oeuvres or something like that. There could be a bear visible, and we can set ourselves up outside to see them. So a pretty spectacular location. And there's a question I'm sure that's going to come up. Why is the lodge on wheels? And so the lodge is in the Churchill Wildlife Management Area, and for a very long time, and still they don't. The province of Manitoba, the governing body for the area, doesn't want any permanent structures on the lodge or on the land. And so, there's no place for foundations, there's no place for wooden structures or anything like that. And so how it used to work is the permit for the lodge, you could come out and park the lodge here for the whole polar bear season until the bears were out on the sea ice at the end of November or early December. And then the lodge would come back in to town, and then or come back into the shop and get stored outside of the Churchill Wildlife Management Area. And then the next fall, it would get brought out and put back into place. However, they've done a lot of research and observation to see kind of what footprint the Tundra Lodge is having. And because everything is self-contained and it's up off the ground like this, there's not really a permanent, there's no significant permanent effects to the area. And so now we're able to leave it out there for the whole year, which is great. I'm sure your expedition leader will talk more about that when you meet them. Okay, so here's a look inside of our lounge. So we've got some nice couches and side tables, some heating, some chairs. You can see at the back there's a little bar for non-alcoholic and alcoholic cold drinks. And it's well set up for our needs. There's on the other end of the room, there's also a presentation or a TV that we do presentations and lectures from either during the day or in the evenings to give you more insight into the polar bear's life. Here's an image of the dining car. So you can see our chefs working diligently kind of at one end. And then you've got the seating for our team, windows on both sides. So it's got some great light, great visibility. And then, we've got coffee and tea, and there's often some cookies kicking around. Just a great assortment of things to help keep us fueled for our expedition. And then looking inside of the accommodation car, you've got basically each room is a single room, so there's no such thing as a double room on the Tundra Lodge. Basically each room is one bunk, it's 2 cars with bunks on either side, 29 total guest rooms. And then this is what a lower bunk looks like. And so in the lower bunk, basically you walk in, you're going to see that there's some hooks on the wall for hanging jackets. There is a light with a power outlet in there, one single power outlet. And then there's a place to, hang some towels. There's a little mirror. And then for the lower bunk, you can see that in the top of this picture, there's a bag. That's where the luggage gets stored. So the large suitcase or the suitcase or duffel bag that you brought with you with your checked bag would get stored up there. And then the upper bunk, this is what the upper bunk looks like. So it's a little 3 or 4 step ladder to get you onto the upper bunk. And then same thing, mirror, hooks, places to hang stuff. But on the upper bunk, your luggage space is down below. And then really kind of cool, this is another perk about the Tundra Lodge. You look over there on the left, you can see the please disturb sign. So that's another perk of the Tundra Lodge, is because we're right out there. There's very little light out there. If we have some clear skies or it looks like it's going to be clear, your expedition leaders will be keeping tabs on what the sky is doing, because Churchill, of course, is a fantastic place to see northern lights. So that's why we've got the please disturb signs, and we'll always talk about that on the trip. Now, another pressing question, which is I'm sure you're all wondering about, well, what about bathrooms? So in the accommodation cars there where we're all sleeping, there are 6 bathrooms, and 4 of them have showers. And as far as that being enough for everybody, I started doing Tundra Lodge trips in 2017, and I've never really had issues or felt like there was, lineups or anything like that. It definitely seems to be enough to space things out for everybody. Same with the showers, and showers too, because of the nature of the Tundra Lodge. We've got some early mornings and that kind of stuff. There's no showers aren't allowed first thing in the morning, but throughout the day and before dinner and after dinner, it's just too much rush time in the morning. So the 4 showers kind of spread throughout the day for everybody seem to work 100%, just perfect. And don't worry about bringing shampoo or conditioner or stuff like that. We have some nice nature friendly stuff that we provide in those in those bathrooms, and we want you to use those instead of kind of the other ones, because it's something we know is good for the systems on the Tundra Lodge. Now, that's the nitty gritty of the Tundra Lodge. I will say right now, I was trying to get some pictures of our team, the folks that we're going to meet out there, but I just missed the deadline to get it in the presentation by a few minutes. We have a fantastic team this year. We've got lodge manager Chris, rover driver Jason, head chef Mary, and then assistant chef Aaliyah. So it's going to be a fantastic team. I've had the pleasure of working with all of those individuals before, and they're just as solid as it gets. So I really look forward to all of you getting to meet them and allowing them to host us in such a fantastic place. So let's talk about Tundra time. So we got to the Tundra Lodge. We're all checked in. We're in our rooms. We've settled in. We've met the team. Now what happens? So that first day arriving to Churchill, we have our half day getting to the Tundra Lodge. We'll have dinner on the Tundra Lodge. And then the following morning, that's when everything gets kicked off. So it's a little bit different for each of the three different types of trips. So if you're on the Tundra Lodge trip, which is a 6-day trip, 3 nights at the Tundra Lodge, you've got 2 full days out at the Tundra Lodge. And the way we usually do it is basically you've got, because the Tundra Lodge, you're situated in wilderness, and sometimes you could have the best activity in the entire area right next to the Tundra Lodge. You have half the group go in the morning. So of the 29, 14 or 15 will go in the morning. And then the other 14 or 15 will be staying on the Tundra Lodge for the morning. And then at lunchtime, after lunch, you'll switch. So you'll have one half of the group, the other half of the group going out in the afternoon, and the group that went in the morning will stay on the Tundra Lodge. And that's usually what we do. And that's worked out fantastic. And yeah, sometimes it's a little bit, it's not something that happens every trip, but I have had trips where, the Tundra Lodge, like I said, was the best place to be, and everyone loaded onto the rover to go out for their half day, but they ended up spending an hour at the Tundra Lodge, just parked a little bit away. Anyways, kind of like how this picture was taken. So that's going to be that's a 6-day trip. You'll basically have, 2 full days where the first half day you'll be on the lodge. It'll be split. You'll do half a day on the rover, half a day on the lodge for each of those 2 days. The Tundra Lodge photo is 3 full days like that, or three days like that, where you'll have half on the lodge, half on the rover, half on the lodge, half on the rover, half on the lodge, half on the rover. And then the Tundra in town, it's just the 1 full day from the Tundra Lodge. You'll have another day on the Tundra from a rover, but you'll be starting that day in town. But as far as time on the Tundra, I apologize, no, that's not how it works. You'll be leaving from the lodge for a full day, and then finishing and going back to town. Anyways, Tundra time. It will be aboard one of these rovers. You can see they've got 6 wheels. They've got windows that come down. They've got a big back deck for viewing, and there's just so many different ways to get a look outside of these vehicles. They're the ultimate all-terrain vehicle. You can do 2-wheel drive, 4-wheel drive, 6-wheel drive, but they're just able to cruise over the most rugged, gnarliest terrain comfortably, which is great. The big back deck gives lots of space for the 14 or 15 people on the rover to kind of stand outside if there's something cool happening, like a bear approaching, as seen in this picture. Let's talk about where we're going to be taking these rovers. So I mentioned this a little bit earlier. This is the Churchill Wildlife Management Area, and the Churchill Wildlife Management Area is basically it's a buffer zone adjacent to Waplusk National Park. Waplusk National Park, it's not like a Yellowstone. You cannot really access Waplusk National Park, and it's been set aside for preservation of tundra habitat, kettle ponds, migratory birds, polar bear den sites, and all that kind of stuff. But it's muskeg, it's water, it's terrible terrain, and there's not really a great way to explore it, and that's not what Parks Canada has developed it for. It's not for visiting. However, the Churchill Wildlife Management Area, which is adjacent to Wipos National Park, is a managed area where people can go and experience basically the same habitat and terrain that you have within the national park next to it. So the Wildlife Management Area, within it, you can see from this image, there's some rugged roads that are traveling through very kind of wet, challenging terrain. You've got a rover driving on that rugged road. They're old military roads from the 1940s, 50s, and 60s for doing kind of a variety of exercises, and also some stuff from the Churchill Research Rocket Range. But anyways, I don't want to get too deep into that. That's something you'll have to learn a little bit more about from your expedition leader on trip. And so there's basically this network of roads that we stick to, and we could spend the whole day driving these all-terrain, driving the polar rovers on these rugged roads. But basically, they bring us kind of in between ponds and spits of land where bears are likely to be either resting or traveling, and it puts us into really one of the most consistently best places to find polar bears during October and November anywhere in the world. So it's also managed. It's a protected area, and there is limited commercial activity to reduce the amount of traffic. So there's a certain number of permits with a certain number of vehicles allowed in here, which means that we basically have preferred and great access to some of the bears, the best places to see polar bears on the entire coast of Canada. It's very cool. Now, inside the polar rover, so I'm sure you've got this question. Well, if we're going to be on that polar rover for 4 hours or more, is there a restroom? Yes, there's a restroom on the rovers, and they are also heated. They've got some fantastic heating systems to keep us warm. However, if there's some wildlife, what always happens is all the windows come down, and suddenly, when it was a comfortable 70 something degrees Fahrenheit inside, it drops down to whatever the air temperature was outside. We have a polar rover driver. This is Val giving some instruction up at the front of this rover. On the Tundra Lodge trips, you're sure to meet Jason, and we may also meet some other polar rover drivers that come to help out. So all those windows go down. They're kind of like if you ever rode a yellow school bus when you were a kid, they kind of have the pinch and slide the window down kind of effect, and that makes it so we can see right out, get the binoculars out the windows, get the cameras out the windows. Like this picture, fantastic for photos. You can see that there's not the first one where someone's resting their lens on their arm, but we do have bean bags that we provide. So tripods, monopods, that kind of thing. They're not so maneuverable, and just the way that the windows are aligned with the seats, it's not the best. But what really works well, and basically equivalent to a monopod, is the bean bags that we provide. They're heavy. They're maybe 5 to 10 pounds each, and it's something just to rest your lens on when we're stopped. The engine's off, everything's quiet, there's very little motion, it stabilizes your lens. So if you're on one of those photo trips or thinking about the photography side of things, monopod, tripod, not super necessary, because we do have these bean bags, which are super, super efficient. Other feature I mentioned, the big back deck, so people can come out. We can look off the back deck at wildlife as it approaches. Of course, only when the rover stopped. And then another feature of the back deck of the polar rover is it's also got kind of this graded base. So if we do have a very close inspection, then we might be able to even see straight down below. But something important, we'll talk about this on trip as well, is dangly bits, scarves, that kind of thing, poking your fingers through there. Trying to put anything through the grates if a bear comes around is a no. It's a no-go. And I'm sure your expedition leaders can talk about that on the trip. And that's just a fun that's a fun picture there. So how do we view bears from the polar rovers? Basically, we're not trying to push bears around. We're not trying to chase bears. We're trying to approach as gently and subtly as possible, and really read what the bears are doing and what they're interested in. If we have a bear that's exhibiting stress signs, we'll probably leave it be. If there's a bear that's sleeping and doesn't really mind us whatsoever, yeah, maybe we'll go a little bit closer. Sometimes the bears find a way to not be viewed, such as this one that's got its paws up on the front of the rover while everyone's looking off the back. And so another important thing, and this is just something to think about while we are getting ready to head out there, is when it comes to spotting bears, it's not just your polar rover driver who's going to be working on it. It's not just your expedition leader that's going to be working on it. It's also up to everybody to keep an eye out and watch for movement and that kind of thing. So the more we're looking, the more we all see. That seems to be the way that it works. If you're wondering about what to bring with you as far as binoculars or cameras, binoculars 8x42, 10x42, 10x50. Really, really good. We always hope that the bears will be close by the rover. We always hope that things are going to work out that way for us, but they are wild animals. It is a wild place. We don't really have much control over how specific bears, individual bears, decide to interact with our vehicles. And as I mentioned, we stick to the roads. We don't chase. We don't harass. And so sometimes the bears are a little bit further away. Sometimes they could be, a couple 100 feet away, 300 feet away. Sometimes there might be just something really cool happening on the other side of a pond, 400 or 500 feet away. And having a pair of binoculars that you've practiced with and used, and you've got dialed in a little bit. You don't have to. You can learn on the fly too. But having a pair of binoculars for you and for your travel partner makes a good deal of sense. And you'll notice your expedition leader will always have binoculars on because it just gets you closer. It gets you closer to things. Everybody ends up using their binoculars if they've got them. Now, when it comes to photography, when it comes to cameras, because there are a couple photo trips here, those work quite well for most things. I've got a couple of lens recommendations here. I would say like 95% of the pictures that I've taken of polar bears while working, while going up to Churchill, were taken on either a 70 to 300, a 100 to 400, or a 150 to 600. And that's I've had those lenses over the years. And so when you're looking at what lens to bring, for wildlife in particular, I'd say try to get into the range of about 100 to 400. That seems to do the best work because we can't always rely on bears being just extremely close. We have to rely more on our equipment, and it gives us more flexibility and more opportunity when we're out there for the bears doing different things, different behaviors at different distances. Now, with that being said, this is a Tundra Lodge trip. As I mentioned, we may have opportunity for northern lights and also maybe some landscape stuff while we're out there. And so a wider angle lens is also something I recommend. 18 to 55, 24 to 70 works great. If you've got the space, something even wider than that is really nice. That's kind of my recommendation, is to have a nice selection, not too much, but 24 to 70 and then a 100 to 400 does a really nice range, or 18 to 55 and then 70 to 3 or something like that. But make sure you've got a good reach with your telephoto lens, and then also another lens that goes a little bit wider. There's also we have a wonderful photography polar bear photography handbook. So if you're on one of those photo trips and you're looking for just a quick kind of insight, do have a look at Nat Hab's ebook that has tons of great advice, suggestions, and information about how to make the most out of your polar bear photography. And if you don't have a telephoto lens, that's okay, because smartphones seem to work pretty well too. And if we've got some critters that are coming within a good distance for video, for some photos, smartphones, they've just come so far in the last 5 years. I'm sure most of you would agree with that. It's just amazing what they're capable of doing. And so don't feel that you need to have the telephoto lens. You know, the people that have those are often pretty focused on having them, because you will do some good work with your smartphone as well. And your expedition leader will be able to give you a little insight and help to capture those smartphone photos. And then, if all else fails, well, you'll just have to watch. No camera, just look out the side, have a glance at those beautiful animals. That's also an important part of it. Yeah, so some other critters that we might see while we're out there. We might see some ptarmigan. We might see, there's a potential for Arctic fox, red fox, snowy owl. More rarely, extremely rare would be like a wolf or a caribou or something like that. But I'd say pretty common, we're looking at like the ptarmigan and the red fox, and then less common Arctic fox, even less snowy owl. But possibilities to see them on every trip. And when there's a sighting, we're coordinating to try to make sure we get a glimpse of that. And then, well, I look forward to introducing you to the landscapes of Churchill and the subtleties and nuances of such a harsh environment, a harsh northern environment. It's pretty cool. So our time on the tundra, at the Tundra Lodge, for the Tundra Lodge trip, you'll be done after 3 nights there. For the Tundra Lodge photo, 4 nights, and for the Tundra Town after 2 nights. And then once you're back in town, I'm just going to address quickly the Tundra Lodge and the Tundra Lodge photo. The only time that we have in town is going to be the morning of our departure. And so what we try to accomplish that morning is we try to get you to see a few of the beautiful murals that came from the Seawalls Churchill project a few years ago. We'll take you, we'll kind of give you an introduction to town. There's not a lot of focus on it on this trip, and we'll also be going out and doing some dog sledding before we head to the airport. So basically, if you can imagine this, we're going to leave in the morning from the Tundra Lodge, and then we'll head into town. We'll do some quick stops exploring around, learning a little bit about the place and the town, some quick photo ops and visits, and then we'll head out for our dog sled experience. There's also, I have a slide here for optional helis. I'll talk about that in a second. But basically for the dog sled experience, we'll come back into town, and then we're going to have some lunch, and then we have to head out to the airport. So for the Tundra Lodge and the Tundra Lodge photo trips, our time in town is quite brief. And I've got this slide on here for the dog sled one, because you can see this first one, there's not very much snow on the ground. And so you'll still be able to have a dog sled experience, but it will be on a custom dog sled cart. And then if we get enough snow on the ground, then we'll be able to do, it's up to the musher, we'll be able to do on proper custom sleds for that. Now, just back to activities. So if you're on a Tundra Lodge and Town trip, which is the Ultimate Churchill Tundra Lodge and Town adventure, you will have more time in town with more activities scheduled. It may include a local presenter. It may include a visit to the Itsanatack Museum, and more time and more immersion into the place of Churchill. Now, on your final morning, this goes for everybody, on our final morning, typically within, things can change, but typically for Tundra Lodge trips, this is the final morning. There is an optional helicopter, and this is a 60-minute helicopter ride. So you can imagine we've spent most of our time on land, exploring via polar rover or in the bus. This gives you the aerial perspective, a 60-minute helicopter flight over much of the Churchill Wildlife Management Area, and ideally, whether providing out to Wapusk National Park by air, of course. It's 1 hour, 60 minutes. It's $690 per person. And you want to talk to your adventure specialist as soon as possible if that's something that you're interested in doing. If you want that aerial perspective of the land, if you want to see a bit more of the area and potentially polar bears from the air, then the best thing to do here is talk to your adventure specialist as soon as possible to secure your space. That's a reminder, $690 per person. But speak to your adventure specialist if that's something you're interested in, and do it sooner than later, because there are potentially limited spots. All right, Northern Lights viewing. So I mentioned that for Northern Lights viewing on the Tundra Lodge as well. We won't be doing this for the Tundra Lodge and the Tundra Lodge photo. We won't be doing this in town, of course, because we're only there for that morning. But any nights that we're at the Tundra Lodge, we'll assess the weather. We'll see what the aurora forecast is, and we'll make some decisions about the wake-up calls. Now, if you are on a Tundra Lodge and town trip, you've got a couple nights in town, and so there is a protocol for that, but it won't just be, going for a walk outside in the dark. You don't do that in Churchill. It will be coordinated, and your expedition leader will explain that protocol to you for the time that you are in town. Now, I hope as I've gone through this, you've seen it as a pretty extraordinary opportunity to get yourself immersed into the world of polar bears. But our Tundra Lodge and our Tundra Lodge photo and the ultimate Tundra Lodge and town trip are just it's a real treat to get to spend time at our brilliant Tundra Lodge and see as much as we do see. Thank you.
Thank you, Eddie. So before we start in with the questions, I would like to remind everyone that if you do have questions, you can submit them via the question field in your control panel. All right, let's dive into the questions. So will there be Wi-Fi in the lodge?
No, there's no Wi-Fi available in the lodge.
Gotcha. So as far as gear goes, if I'm arriving a day early, will I be able to get the gear that day, or am I going to have to wait till the next day?
Yeah, the boots and parka room is for the duration of our polar bear season. It's open every day. The hours when you get that welcome orientation letter at the hotel, the exact hours that they are open will be available on there.
Is a neck gaiter part of the equipment we get, or is that something we need to bring?
Yeah, we'll be providing a neck gaiter.
That's great to know. Thanks, man. So do the parkas that we get, do they need to go into our luggage?
No, the parkas, the way we bring the parkas up to Churchill is basically we wear them from the hotel to the bus to the plane. And then once we're on the plane, the parkas get stored in the overhead compartment. And then for the boots, because they're quite bulky as well, you're going to wear the boots on the plane as well. And you'll have them right away, because it's likely going to be quite a bit colder in Churchill than it was in Winnipeg. So it's nice to have as soon as we land.
Gotcha. Thank you. So does the camera bag actually get weighed if it fits under our seat?
Usually, it's usually yes, and there's always basically the opportunity for it to be weighed. So whether or not we do it at the Fort Garry Hotel in the morning, if it fits under the seat in front of you, we can arrive at the airport, and then as we're stepping off the bus and walking our 15 feet, there's airport staff there from the charter company, and if they are they're trying to stick to basically Transport Canada rules, and they may, if they see something that looks like it is heavy, then they'll weigh it on the spot, and if it's over the weight, then they're gonna try to valet that bag.
Gotcha. Good to know. Um, do we need to exchange US dollars for Canadian dollars?
So I guess it depends on what you're bringing cash for. If you're looking for gifts and that kind of stuff, when you're in Churchill Town itself, at some of the shops there, all the shops are going to be taking major credit cards. And then if you are looking at bringing cash for gratuities, our groups, our crew, our field operations specialists, the Tundra Lodge crew, and the expedition leaders are all familiar with receiving US dollar gratuities. So the only reason you might want to exchange for Canadian dollars is if you're intending on paying for things with Canadian dollar cash, while you are, buying goods or going to the store or something like that. That would be the Canadian dollar cash. Otherwise, everywhere takes cards.
Perfect. Thank you. Do you recommend bringing a tripod?
So if you're on for a tripod on the Polar Rovers, it's not really usable. It becomes more of a hindrance to the photographer than anything, because bears don't stay in the same place, right? They're not just going to be sitting in one spot. So you can go set up your tripod and do all that kind of stuff. And so then you have to move your tripod and try to fit it in among the seats to shoot out the window on the other side of the rover. So I've found tripods that do show up for polar bear photography just end up getting left back at the Tundra Lodge. Now, we have a couple of tripods on the Tundra Lodge, and then if you wanted to bring one for the potential of Northern Lights photography, just be aware that we're going to really convince you or push you to use a beanbag on the Polar Rovers, but you can bring a small travel one if you want to use it for the potential of Northern Lights photography on the Tundra Lodge. But even so, beanbags work for that too, when we rest the camera pointing out the window. So I would say it's on the priority of things to bring. A tripod is pretty low.
Gotcha. Thank you. So will we be allowed to get off the rovers or out of the Tundra Lodge at any time during the adventure?
No. So that's a great question. And lots of people ask it, but basically what you're going to end up doing is when we arrive in Churchill, we get on that rover to make our way to the Tundra Lodge. We are going to be suspended above the ground for the entire duration of our Tundra Lodge experience. There's no access to the ground. It is polar bear country. Sometimes bears are sleeping in the willows next to the lodge. And it's just it is not a safe place for us to be wandering around. So our safety being paramount, as well as kind of playing by the rules within the wildlife management area, we won't be doing anything on foot while we're at the Tundra Lodge.
Gotcha. And what is the temperature range inside the lodge?
I mean, it's comfortable. I'm not sure what would you call room temperature? 70 something. It's fine. They've got heat, several heaters all throughout. It doesn't really, I wouldn't say it cools down in the room. We have kind of like a temperature within the room system that works pretty well. So yeah, I would say room temperature, maybe a little bit warmer sometimes.
Gotcha. So do you think we should bring our own down jackets to wear from home, or maybe a fleece that we can wear under the parka? Would you recommend that?
Yeah, I would. And I think we've got some good information about kind of what stuff to bring in our pre-departure briefing under the gear list. But what I would say is, having a heavy fleece or a down puffy jacket is a great idea. And if you're from a cold climate and you have a parka of your own that you know and like and is good to cold temperatures, you can bring that. But just make sure if you're going to bring something like that outer layer, that parka layer with you, just make sure that when you go to boots and parkas, you bring it up so that your expedition leader or an expedition leader can check it out, because sometimes what you think might do it, our team knows best as far as what temperatures to experience and what the weather's been like and is likely to be. So I would bring any of those, like that outer shell layer, to our team to inspect. But yeah, definitely a fleece or a down puffy jacket to put under the parka is a great idea.
So, what time of days will we be doing some wildlife viewing? Is it going to be morning or afternoon? And are both time frames equal in terms of opportunity to see wildlife?
Yeah, both time frames. Wildlife on the tundra doesn't really have much of a schedule. Bears can be active in the morning, they can be active in the evening. Same with all the other wildlife. Days are pretty short, so even if we did have our more crepuscular animals, we'd still kind of see some of that because sunrise is quite late and sunset is quite early. So morning and afternoon are both great, and generally our polar rover timings are from 8 a.m. until 4 p.m. And so if the morning group will go out from 8 until 12, and the afternoon group will go out from 12 until 4, somewhere around there. That's the expected timings.
Thank you so much. So, how likely is it that we are going to see polar bears?
You have very, very good odds. I can't give you a percentage. What I can tell you is that if you were to go anywhere in Canada to go and look for polar bears in October and November, I would say you should probably go to Churchill and spend some time up there. So bears have already been around. Bears are, this summer there's been bears around. There's bears up there now. There's bears that are kind of moving around through the area already. So it's just a matter of being there and seeing what we get. Of course, every trip is a little bit different. Every experience will be a little bit different, but it's a great place to go to look for polar bears. So you have very good odds.
And what about the northern lights? Is October too early to see them, or is it just a random event that we have no way of predicting?
So the northern lights, basically the prerequisites to see northern lights is you want dark skies and you want clear skies in Churchill. So Churchill sits under what's called the Aurora Oval, and it's a place where you'll have some type of aurora activity over 300 nights a year. And so it's like one of the best places in the world for northern lights. And kind of my saying about going in October and November is because our priority, right, is polar bears. It's the main focus of the trip, and the northern lights is a beautiful bonus if we can get it. But essentially, you're going to one of the best places in the world to look for the northern lights at one of the worst times of year, because October and November it's very cloudy, it's very wet, a lot of precipitation falls. There can be some storms, there can be some snow, there can be some wind. But being out at the Tundra Lodge, if there is a clearing of the sky, you're in the best place. So the odds are reasonably good that one of the nights you're out there, you may have it, but you also might not, because it is fall, it is wet and cloudy, and so you might not get it. But we do try.
Great. Well, thanks for covering that. All right, I know there's no
Yeah.
Wi-Fi, Eddie, but is there a wireless signal? Will I be able to use my cell phone if I have to contact somebody?
If it's like an emergency, then we can cover that. But like cell signal isn't necessarily guaranteed out there. You might get the odd glimpse of it from town, but we're 20 miles from the main cell towers, and so it's I actually would say cell service kind of depends on the weather out there. Sometimes it can actually work, and sometimes it just doesn't. But I would not rely on it.
Gotcha. Thank you. So if I don't want to do the helicopter ride or I stay back for some event, are there other alternate things that I could be doing while these events are occurring?
Yeah, the people that are going on the helicopter ride, basically, the rest of the group is going to be doing something, uh, exciting as well. We're going to be exploring town. We're going to be looking for wildlife around town. We're going to be going to some places that those people on the helicopters, they're just not going to get to see. Um, yeah, in very rare instances that can, yeah. But that's kind of the goal is we're going to go out and we're going to look for wildlife. We're going to explore town and learn some stuff. And the helicopter folks won't be doing that.
Gotcha. Thanks for covering that, Eddie. Well, unfortunately, that is going to be the last question that we do have time for today. So I'd like to throw it back to you for your closing comments.
Well, I'm super thrilled to be heading back up to Churchill again for some Tundra Lodge expeditions. It is, in my opinion, one of the coolest adventures. Just being able to sleep out there in the wilderness, where as you're sleeping, you could have a bear walk by your window, and it's as close to the habitat as you can possibly get, and I love it for that. I really look forward to seeing the lodge crew out there, and I look forward to seeing all of you, or maybe not every single one, but I look forward to seeing a lot of you on trip. Thank you very much.
Eddie, thank you for taking the time to present for us today. And I'd also like to thank everyone who tuned in today. So if you are interested in information on how you could travel to Churchill with NatHab, please give us a call at 800-543-8917 or send us an email at info@nathab.com. Our adventure specialists are happy to help you out. And if you're part of a photo club and would like NatHab to speak to your members about nature and travel photography, email us at webinars@nathab.com. Join us Monday for our next daily dose of nature. You can check out this next week's lineup, including registration links, on our website at nathab.com/webinars. We did record today's presentation, and we will have the replay available on our website soon. With that, I will conclude the webinar. So long, everybody. We'll see you next time.